Welcome to the Jockey Club, a podcast looking at the movie Let It Ride, one scene at a time. My name is Dan Delgado, and we're at historic Hialeah Park where one man is having the best day of his life.
I'm having a good day.
So come on in and hang out while we talk about this day and our greatest movie of all time, Let It Ride. Don't worry about that guy at the door. I've got you covered. You can even
take my seat to the Jockey Club.
Welcome back to the Jockey Club. My name is Dan Delgado, and we are up to the 27th episode, which means that we're doing the 27th scene of Let It Ride. And really, it's the 27th scene, according to me. This is the scene where Trotter returns to Marty's bar to convince everyone to bet with him. With me to discuss this scene is Jason Beem. Now, Jason is no stranger to the world of horse racing. He's the announcer for Tampa Bay Downs, and he hosts a podcast for Twin Spires Racing, the accurately titled Jason Beem Horse Racing Podcast. And if that's not enough for you, the man also happens to be an author. And I also want to mention up front, this episode is being released the week of Thanksgiving. And if you'd like to give thanks to this podcast, you can do so by simply leaving a rating or review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you may be listening to this. It may or may not make a difference, but it will warm my cold, dead heart. I also need to confess something to you. There was an audio incident in this episode. Some of it didn't make it to the finish line. Really, it's not much, but it does happen. So you may notice that around the 8 or 9 minute mark. Just know that it's 100% completely my fault. And if you're playing along at home, this is from minute 110:49 to 113:43. So now let's head on up to my usual table at the Jockey Club to discuss what a luck box is, the loser mentality, and the 27th scene of Let It Ride. All right, so Jason, first thing I'd like to know from you is if you could remember the first time that you saw Let It Ride and what your initial reaction to it was, and has that changed over time?
I was a late adopter. I hadn't heard of it until I was working in horse racing. And so that would have been 06, 07.
Oh, wow.
Real early into when I started announcing. And I remember somebody just said something about horse racing movies. I'm sure it was Seabiscuit they were talking about because it was probably not long after that came out. Mm-hmm. And I distinctly remember ordering it on eBay on the DVD because it was not, the streaming was not around.
Right.
And it was not like all that readily available. Like you had to kind of, look through the eBay files to find one. And so I mailed away for it and watched it and specifically remember thinking it was great. I mean, I don't know how any horse player can't relate to a lot of parts of it. And the scene we're talking about tonight, I think really hits home for a lot of horse players because we'll talk about that.
Okay, great. So another thing I want to ask you about real quick is that you mentioned that you watched it every year the day before the Portland Meadows opening day. Someone else on Twitter had a watching ritual with Let It Ride. A user at Ray LV702 let me know that he watches it every year before the Breeders' Cup. So just what's going on with the ritual? What was that about?
So it was, I was lucky when I first got into announcing because I had 2 jobs right away. I had River Downs in the spring and summer and Portland Meadows in the fall, winter. So I actually did it each opening day, so twice a year, I guess. And my tradition was I would go out to a really nice dinner and color my program. If you've seen a lot of race callers do this, we'll color with crayons or colored pencils. I use colored pencils, our programs, because we use a handheld program for when you're looking through the binoculars in case you need to look real quick, it's there. And so I'll color in the jockey silks and the saddle towels. And it kind of became my ceremony to go out for a really nice dinner, color the program at said dinner, and then go home and watch Let It Ride and look at the programs. And I did that I remember doing it for years. I haven't done it in a little while, but that was my in Portland, I would always go to El Gaucho, which was a really good steakhouse there in Portland. And then I feel like in Cincinnati, I switched it a few different times, but like I'd go to the Jeff Ruby's downtown once. There was a Jeff Ruby's Tropicana, which was a floating steakhouse in the Ohio River that at one point floated away, like it got off the
Oh, no kidding.
And if you look up Jeff Ruby's like Ohio River, there's probably articles about it. But yeah, like the restaurant literally floated like 100 feet down the water.
I'm totally putting it down so I can look this up.
Yeah, but no, so that was kind of my little Let It Ride tradition. And there's a lot of horse racing movies that have that are good, but I think horse players, like, you're never going to match that one.
Yeah, well, it's the movie that's about the horse player as opposed to the jockey and the horse and the winning of a race. It's more like the winning of a bet is really what it's really all about. All right, so let's discuss this scene. I'll kind of break down the events of the scene and any thoughts, comments that you have. I welcome them. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. Okay. All right, so this scene starts where Trotter is walking back into Marty's bar. In the previous scene, he went home. Maybe he was going to stay home. He goes home. He's got a necklace for his wife. He's got most of his $69,000. But he picks up a card, calls it, turns it over. The card he's called is the one in his hand. So he still has the magic. Yeah, he still has the whatever that is.
There's the twinkle music in the background too, right? Like when he pull, I think it's 5 of clubs, but it's like you hear the do 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 do, and so yes, the magic is in the air.
Yes, I'm just curious. Have you ever had such kind of magic in your career?
I thought I did, but boy, it goes away really fast. It doesn't stick around for a whole day, that's for sure.
All right, so as soon as Trotter goes now, knowing that he still has the juice, he goes back. First, he's going to go to Marty's bar. He walks in, and people are very excited to see him. It's a completely different experience for Trotter returning to the bar, whereas before, they weren't so happy with him as he won that first race, as he won that second race. We don't need this guy around anymore. But now, after the third race win, he walks in, and everyone is excited. People are chanting his name. Evangeline, who's now drinking beer and smoking cigarettes as opposed to before when she shows up and she's all innocent. She says, "Now that's a man," when he comes in. And Looney is hugging him. Marty gives him a toast. Okay. So, Jason, everybody was not happy with Trotter as a winner after the first initial wins. Now he's returning after the third win, and it's a completely different story. What do you think is going on? Or do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I think this is a major, major horse player thing, and I equate it to modern day Twitter, because if somebody posts a big score on Twitter, they will get new followers. And I've had friends who have hit for 5,000-6,000 on a ticket, and they'll message me like, "Dude, I got like 30 new followers today." People are drawn to people who win. If you win a big tournament, the NHC, the BCBC or stuff. In fact, the guy that won the BCBC last week, like I remember looking, he's at 300 more followers than he had 3 days ago. People are drawn to winners. And there was a guy that used to be on Twitter named JJ, who's actually since passed away, but he was a young guy, but he was at DMR Surfside. And he used to make more noise when he would make a win than anybody online, but everybody started following him because he got hot. And I think that there's a lot of superstition amongst horse players, but when Trotter walks into the bar, to me, everybody is now they all now believe, right? Because the theme of not the theme of the movie, but a lot of the theme of the movie is with those characters in the bar is picking a winner, right? Like even the first race when he first walks in, they're talking about how, you really like this one. I like this one, and I got a 32-star system versus a 40-star,
Yes.
It's so much about just picking the winner. And he's now picking winners, right? And he's got it. And even Cheeseburger, who, everybody else is excited he's in there, but Cheeseburger's got to still try to knock him down a peg, right? Like in this scene, he still says, "We'll be here when you blow it all."
Oh my God, it's one of my favorite lines in the movie is, "We'll be here to pick you up when it's over." Oh my God, it cracks me up every time. No one's into this idea. They're all very excited as he's describing it, But once he gets to, we're going to bet it together.
And we're gonna bet it together! Yeah!
It's just dead silence, coughs. No one wants to do this. What is this about? Is this, I'm more interested in your advice than I'm interested in your advice costing me money. I'm willing to listen to you and be around you, but I don't know if I want to dig into my pocket based on what you say. What do you think, Jason?
To me, this is the mystery of the scene, and I don't know. Because I remember thinking, like, wait a minute, why did they all drop the excitement? Like, of course that's what he's talking about, is that we're going to all bet it, and we're going to all make money and stuff like that. Yeah, that part of the scene throws me a little bit because I feel like he said exactly what they should have thought he was building up to. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because he builds it up, right? He's like, I'm hot, right? And they all say, yeah. He's like, what if we do this? Yeah, and like it's one or two little lines, and then a cheer, and then a cheer, and it's like it seems obvious that he's building up to like we're gonna let it ride, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, it really does.
I don't get why they don't want in on the fun.
Okay, all right. So I was hoping that you maybe could explain this to me because this has always kind of made me wonder. Because I'll tell you, if I'm there, maybe I'm not going to put, he's asking for everything. Everything you've got. Every last, like, he's saying it as though, go home, hawk everything in the house, and then come back.
Go get your $75 of O positive blood.
That's exactly right. Bring it here. We all bet it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that if I'm there, whatever I have in my pocket, I will bet with him.
Yeah. It made more sense to me that they all should want to jump in. Or at least somebody would have. Literally, the whole bar just went back to normal within 4 seconds.
Yes, everyone is back. Everyone is back talking about what I love is the little conversations that they're now having about the other horses. Marty is talking about a 27-star system he has for a horse that he wouldn't bet his grandmother on. I love
that he refers to it as a system.
I know. It's a system. It's 27 stars. Yeah. That's not enough to bet your grandmother on. That's a lot of stars.
Yeah. No, that like I said, it just the whole part confused me a little bit. Because I thought everybody should kind of jump on it, and it seemed like it was the logical build up to what he was saying. But it also proves a little bit that I think losing horse players never do what's in their best interests, and it just seems very appropriate that they would shy away from the guy who's hot.
Yeah, it really does make me wonder if this is just playing into whatever the loser mentality is, because Marty's bar is unquestionably full of losers, right?
Yeah.
There's not really another way to put it. And the fact that the sure thing is right in front of them and they don't want to take it. Is there something that the horse player, let me rephrase, that the losing horse player has that will prevent them from winning? Is there something that says, okay, like maybe way in the back of their mind, they don't even know it, that says, oh, no, I this looks like it's going to work out. I don't want to do it. Just like in the beginning, Looney has the opportunity to bet with Trotter and passes on it.
I mean, Trotter says earlier in the movie, God hates him, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I really, truly believe, and I say this as someone who at many points in my life has been a sick gambler. Like, there's times that you think that the world and God and whatever else is against you because there's so many just crazy ways to get beat in this game and any game, right? I mean, I've played poker where the one card that can beat you comes out. But I almost think that there is a mentality. I mean, logically now as an older, maybe more intelligent bettor, like I know that 1 out of 50 shot is going to happen 1 out of every 50 times. And I know that if that happens to me, I still did everything else right. I just got unlucky this time, right? But I think before I used to think like, I get that idea of like God hates me, right? Because you think that because it just seems impossible to lose certain ways sometimes, or to keep losing, continue. Like when Looney asks earlier on, like, when was the last time I had a winning week? And he's like, February 3rd, 3 years ago, $22. Like, Looney's just. I don't even know that he's a born loser. He's just playing a game that's really tough to beat, and he obviously has I mean, his systems are awful.
Yeah, well, his system is it's the same name as my cat. If I bet a half on the Packers, maybe they won't lose so bad. Like all of his ideas are terrible. I think
they lost 75-3 or something. The Packers.
That's right. Yes,
the most improbable score of all time. So, but like if I'm Looney, like I'm taking that as a sign from the universe. Like I bet the Packers. And they lost the biggest lopsided loss in the history of the NFL. There can't have ever been a 75-3 game in the NFL from 1980 on.
Right.
It seems impossible, which is funny, but like it just reinforces like that's how bad Looney is. And it's the one time that he pressed from $50 to $500.
That's true. That's true. So everyone in the bar maybe has the Looney bug inside of them.
Yeah. I think there's a defeatist attitude amongst a lot of gamblers. Because they've been defeated regularly, and it can't be their fault, right? It's not that they're bad players. It's God, it's the universe, it's whatever. Because I feel like people who are losers at games like that, like they don't want to look in the mirror.
Don't blame the player, blame the game.
Blame the game, yeah.
But an entirely different meaning, in our version here. Yeah, all right. So, Jason, if you're in the bar. And here comes Trotter with his 69K and his 3 wins in a row and his let it ride attitude. I'm curious.
Yeah.
What is it that you would be doing in this situation?
I would probably be watching and talking about what a luck boxy is. And like and
wait,
and
what's a like I'm sorry, I don't know this term. Luck box.
Here nobody should listen to him.
Well, that's true because he's not actually doing any handicapping in this film at all.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the hearing the information in the cab, like at least it's something, right? But it's also there's information that's given out every day by every trainer, and 10% of the time it comes in.
All right. So since we're actually having this little bit of a conversation, the idea that they held charity back for a few weeks, how good of a tip is that?
I mean, I'm sure in 1980, whatever, it was probably somewhat decent. Now, yeah, I mean, well, and because I know when they show the PPs show like 81, 82, so it's like an old racing form.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, or the horse is 10 and just hasn't run. But like when they zoom in on a couple of the racing form shots, like I feel like you see 81 and 82. And so,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, so they probably literally just grabbed an old form or something. But because maybe they needed they actually needed a horse named Charity, and one hadn't run since 1981, or I don't know. And maybe it's just a random coincidence. But I feel like nowadays, seemingly, with much better like broadcast and video, like I feel like people pick up on suspicious stuff and trips a little bit better now. and if they would have held Charity back 3 or 4 starts in a row, like there would have been some trip handicappers that would have been sniffing it out and talking about it on social media.
Okay, so that's not working today. That's not flying these days.
I mean, I'm sure you could a little bit, but like the video quality is just too good now, and the stewards are all watching on multiple cameras. Like they're going to see if you're, really holding on tight.
Yeah, if you're, okay, I got you. If you're, if you're doing a thing.
Doing a thing.
All right, so now Trotter says just before he leaves, he looks around at everybody and he just says, "You don't understand."
Yeah.
Like they don't understand what's going on with him. That's kind of our last point. Then he leaves. And is it possible for them to understand? Is he right? I mean, in a sense, he is.
Yeah. I think they're all bitter that he's had this great day. Like, it's almost like, to some degree, it's like he's now not one of them, right? Like he's made the big score. Like he's gotten what they wanted. So I think there's just a lot of jealousy running around the room, even though they were all kind of buying into the hype and the excitement. Like I think at their real true core, they're kind of bitter about the whole thing.
All right. So one more hypothetical question for you. So let's just say Trotter does not make the 4th bet. Let's just say he goes back home and he stays away from the track for about a week, because I figure he could stay away for maybe about a week. And then he comes back to the bar.
Yeah.
How are they treating him then? Are they still fascinated by him because of his wins? Or is it all just back to normal? Oh, that was last week. That's all over now.
Well, I forget because when he does the math of the money he's won and I owe taxes and I got to pay this 12 years rent, all this kind of stuff. And then he goes, I'm broke,
Yes.
So Is he? I mean, if he's broke from the 69,000 and he does go do all that stuff, which he's not, there's no way that any horse player is paying their rent in advance 12 years.
12 years. Yeah. I don't know any regular human who's going to pay 12 years of rent.
What landlord is going to take that? Especially, I mean, come on. They're going to be like, no, we're going to raise your rent in 5 years. But
I know. We all saw the duplex he's living in. Why would you pay 12 years of rent for that anyway?
I can only speak for myself, but I know that after big scores, I'm going right back just because I'm feeling first of all, you're flush.
Yes.
And second of all, like you're feeling like you maybe got it going. Every time I used to have a big score, like the next day, I'm like, I'm going to be a professional horse player now. This is just what it's going to be. And reality would happen, would direct me away from that very, very quickly. But I don't know, because it's funny. Like I do think that some people will sit on a win, but Trotter doesn't strike me as the guy. I mean, his wife certainly doesn't think he's going to. If anything, she's going to try to get the money, right?
Absolutely.
And like what, maybe like when the scene before, she says, "Here, just give me all the money. I'll give you $10 if you have to bet."
Yes.
And of course, then the famous line, like, "There is no racing without betting."
Oh yeah, I don't understand why you can't just watch the horses run around and not bet on them.
And everybody just indignantly laughs at him from around the Jockey Club.
Yeah, it's such a great, hilarious moment, and yes, that is such a perfect line that Trotter. I mean, the way he delivers it to his own wife in public is terrible. But that sentence of "because there is no racing without betting," it really does kind of sum it all up, right?
Well, and I've seen that line. The idea of like betting is ruined racing, or we need to get rid of betting, from a few people in the industry in recent years, and I mean. You want to talk about just having no awareness of what really drives the sport. Like those folks are completely in la land.
Wait, there is actually people in horse racing who feel that the betting is the thing that needs to go.
I've seen it. I've seen it mentioned a few times on Twitter over the years. My good buddy Inside the Pylons. There's one screenshot he has that he posts about every other week of the person who said that, and I don't want to give him crap because.
Yeah,
but
no naming of names. It's fine, but still.
Yeah, that's what they feel and they're entitled to. But I just think it's completely ignoring the primary driver and motivation of this industry.
Yeah, I would just categorize it as impossibly naive. Is what I would say.
Well, and I know that a lot of horsemen and people in that side of the business, or people who just came to it as fans, like. We all see everything through our lenses and our worldview and our experiences, right? So I get that maybe they didn't come up on the betting side of things like I did. And so I guess I can see how they just aren't maybe as aware of how important it is, but it's obviously frustrating. And I try to respond respectfully and not be too mean to them.
Please be respectful, Jason, please. Yeah. All right, so we are already at the end of the scene, Jason. We've done it. So is there anything else that you'd like to add about the scene or Let It Ride in general?
No, I hadn't watched it in probably 2 or 3 years. So it was when you asked me to come on, I watched it again, and it was fun to go back. And I think like a lot of really good movies, even watching something for the 20th or 30th time, you pick up something little, an extra. And the part that makes me laugh is when Trotter's driving around the cab and he's listening to the tape of the guy saying, "You're telling me you had the jockey hold charity bag?" It's very obvious that there's two different recordings of it, because he's the two guys that are having the conversation, and like the first time when it's happening, it's kind of very slow and deliberate. "No, I'm not telling you that at all."
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And when Trotter's listening to the replay, he plays it twice, and it sounds completely different one time from the other. And I don't know why it cracks me up that it's obvious, because the guy's like, "You're telling me you had charity." Like it's almost like he's reading it one time, and then the other time is the actual acting. But there's just so many little moments in the movie that are so funny and so relating to horse players. And like that's to me, I emailed with Jay Cronley once, who wrote the book years and years ago. Yeah, because I had written a novel, and at the time I was kind of trying to figure out how to get it published, and he kind of offered some insights. And obviously the publishing world had changed quite a bit since then, but he was just really cool about it. And you just realize how much he kind of nailed a lot of little stuff. And I think that says a lot, because Hollywood movies, like my book got optioned for film stuff, and the first thing they wanted to do was basically change everything. And I know that Hollywood and movies in general, they love to make things more accessible, make it, a little bit easier to digest. And I think that somehow Let It Ride still managed to carry a lot of inside jokes for maybe not the biggest, audience that will get them. But I think that's helped it become very much a loyal, fanship of even though obviously it wasn't like some crazy huge commercial success.
Yeah, that is a really good point. All right, so Jason, what's the name of your book?
Oh, Southbound, it's called, yeah.
All right, so now I'm going to add that to my list of things.
Yeah, they just did an audiobook of it, actually, last year, but it's been out for 8 years now.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
All right, what's it about?
It's about a gambling degenerate announcer who decides to become a professional or try to take his hand. It was me playing out my fantasy of wanting to be a professional gambler and how I think it would have played out if I did that. But I use a little bit of my background, but it's very much fiction. Like I put the character in a lot of desperate spots and stuff like that. But it was a journal exercise that went awry, essentially.
I love it. It sounds fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Jay Cronley is Jay Trotter in his book.
Yeah,
I mean, unquestionably. So it's totally understandable. And really, what else could you do? Thank you for listening to the Jockey Club. This episode was hosted and produced by me, Dan Delgado. Thank you to my guest, Jason Beem. Look for Jason's podcast, the Jason Beem Horse Racing Podcast, wherever you got this podcast from. There's going to be a link to it in the show description, and there's also a link to Jason's book in there as well. Check it out. Our theme music is from Epidemic Sound. Our cover art is by Sean Labrie. And if you enjoyed this episode, and I would like to think that you did, then you can help the show out by buying me a coffee, a real legitimate thing that a couple of you have been nice enough to do. There's a link in the show notes on how to do it. Now, if you're saving up all your pennies to bet on the 4-horse, I understand. You can still support the show by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you may be listening to this. And since the holidays are coming up, I would remind you all that if you're looking for some merch to give to that big Jockey Club fan of yours, yes, we actually have some. Get a shirt, get a mug, get yourself some more Jockey Club love in your life. And if you'd like, you can contact me through email, dan@moviemaker.com. I'm on Twitter @_Dan_Delgado. Or even better, I'm on the Repod app, which is a great way to not only to listen to podcasts, but to interact with podcast hosts. You can find it in your app store, so come on by and say hello. This has been Dan Delgado for the Jockey Club. And remember, sometimes you could be walking around lucky and not even know it.
Now, here's what we're gonna do. Yeah. We're gonna take everything we've got. Everything I've got. And everything you've got. Every last cent. We're gonna put it all together into one big pot. And we're gonna bet it together! Yeah!